And let me introduce you to our second guest tonight, Dr. Michael Farley, a naturopathic doctor. He began his early studies in Oriental medicine at the age of, get this, 4. And by the time he was 12 years old, Dr. Farley had learned how to control the nervous system, including the heart rate, breathing, the fine motor coordination. And Michael's 30-plus years of personal experience, observation, and research have given him a refreshing and simple way to understand the medicinal uses of natural herbs. Here he is, joining Ty Bollinger on Coast to Coast, Dr. Michael Farley. Michael, how are you?
I'm fine, George. How are you?
I'm doing great. Now, this is not a typo, right? You studied Oriental medicine at the age of 4?
Actually, yes. I started at 4, and at the age of 12 was transferred to another Oriental physician. At the age of 19, transferred to another Oriental physician.
Huh.
And then I went to a major university and medical school in allopathic medicine, became a forensic pathologist, and then I became a naturopath.
Interesting. What a career move for you. At the age of 4, Michael, was this something you wanted to do, or were you pushed into it by friends or family?
Actually, I'm Native American, and both of my parents were alcoholics. And we had a neighbor that had married a Chinese lady during World War II.
Okay.
And she brought her father over, who was a MD in China. And he had a grandson the same age as I was, and he actually began our training.
So, and in China, practicing with herbs is pretty standard in medicine, isn't it?
It was very standard in medicine. As I said, he was an MD, medical doctor, but their allopathic medicine, as we would call it here, or conventional medicine, was herbally based.
They're like compound pharmacists, so to speak, aren't they?
Actually, that was a large part of the training, was the mixing of herbs, as you said, as a compounding pharmacist.
Hey, Ty, let's bring you in here.
Yep.
There you are. So how did you and Michael get together? How did this experience occur?
Yeah, let me bridge the gap. That's a great question there, George. As I began to meet doctors and naturopaths and herbalists through my experience from the cancer book and through my contacts in writing the cancer book, I was contacted by a physician that knew Dr. Farley and said he wanted to talk to me. So we began to talk and talked several times and just kind of became friends over the phone. And it just kind of naturally led to eventually publishing this book together, because Dr. Farley, he won't ever toot his own horn, so I'll toot it for him. He is the most knowledgeable herbalist that I've ever encountered. He knows herbs like no one I've ever met.
Michael, one of the questions I had asked Ty last hour, and he wanted me to ask you, was, how did the ancients, the medicine men, the people of that era, how did they know how to use herbs for specific illnesses or treatment? I mean, I know it was handed down, but how did the first people know this?
Great question. Huxley wasn't the first.
No, far from it.
Actually, Native Americans were very in tune with nature, and they would watch animals that were suffering from various diseases. They would butcher animals, see what was in their stomachs. I actually learned naturopathic medicine at the Native American Studies Institute. And what reason I went there was because we had 5 years of phytochemistry. But we actually had to not only identify the plants, but we had to learn by taste and smell which plants were safe, which plants were alkaline, which plants were acidic, and what that meant as far as our health goes. So there were many, many mechanisms that we used and developed over the years. And also, you have to remember that Native Americans, a lot of the Asian, for example, American ginseng didn't come from America. It came and migrated with the people from China.
Okay. Interesting.
And with that migration, a lot of the medicine did as well.
So they witnessed things, they saw things, they remembered this, and then, if somebody came down with a fever, they'd know exactly what to do.
Actually, yes. And there was, in allopathic medicine, we're taught to treat symptoms. In Native American or naturopathic medicine, we're taught to treat the whole much more comprehensively and to work with the body. As an example, and this is a very simple example.
Okay.
The Native Americans, when you had a fever, they knew that the body was trying to raise its temperature, so they would have a sweat lodge.
To fight off whatever you had, right?
Exactly. It raised the temperature, and most bacterial infections, most fungal infections, can only operate in a very narrow temperature. So they would help the body to rid the body of that infection. In the United States, we treat the symptom. If you have a fever, you take aspirin, Tylenol, ibuprofen to reduce the fever, and that in itself prolongs the illness.
I was going to ask you that. So, we have historically treated fevers, trying to get it down, when the reason you have a fever is the body is fighting off whatever ailment you might have. So you're counterbalancing that, aren't you?
You're exactly right. Now, there are limits with children when their fever goes and spikes over 106 degrees. You want to get it down.
Right. That's too high.
You don't want to have brain damage. So there are limits. But for the most part, the naturopath tends to work with the body rather than to try to ameliorate the symptoms which prolong the illness. I was listening to you and Ty before, and you asked several interesting questions, and that was one of them. But it was mainly through observation and also the trading of information from tribe to tribe.
Okay, so, one tribe would say, hey, this works for this, and the other tribe would say, well, try this for this.
Exactly. And it spread very rapidly that way. Marijuana use in the United States, and I don't want to get into the legalities of it or anything else, but
right.
We can trace it back 3,000 years to a woman who was having trouble with a breech birth. And it was found in the gravesite. And it was used in order to relax the uterus and in order to take away some of her discomfort and pain. So a lot of this evidence comes from digging up graves, actually anthropology, and believe it or not, there's never been a Native American gravesite in which they died from cancer.
That's interesting. Now tell us about your experience with these herbs and treating cancer and other diseases. This is fascinating.
Ty, help me out here. I'm really at a loss to treating cancer, but it's speaking about that, and there's a reason for that. Because
you want me to chime in here, Doc?
Yeah, help me out.
Yeah.
What's
sure.
the reason, Ty?
Dr. Farley has developed several herbal remedies for cancer. At this point, he, in order to avoid the medical mafia coming down on him, he just doesn't want to mention the names of the products. But Dr. Farley has developed numerous herbal remedies for cancer that are amazingly effective at treating cancer. He's just, at this point, if he were to sit here on the most listened to radio show in the world at night and talk about his herbal remedies, he's afraid that it would attract too much scrutiny on those remedies.
They'd come down on you.
Yeah, but he is the most knowledgeable herbalist, especially in the realm of cancer, that I know of. So let's just we'll give.
All right. Well, let me rephrase the question that way and protect him.
Sure.
Dr. Farley, how do these herbs, whatever they are, how do they work?
That's a really good question, and it's actually one that's easy to work, easy to describe. Ty mentioned chrysin before, and that's a flavonoid, and it comes from the passion flower. And I doubt most of your listeners haven't drank passion fruit before.
No.
that normalizes testosterone and other androgen levels. And as you know, many cancers are estrogen positive. In other words, estrogen makes them grow. So by normalizing testosterone and androgen levels and binding to estrogen receptors, it prevents the invasion of cancer cell cultures. Coriolus versicolor is a Chinese herbal mushroom, and it increases cytotoxicity of natural cancer killer cells. It inhibits the invasion of cancer cells, metastasis, and proliferation. So diindolylmethane, which is DIM, which comes from broccoli, Brussels sprouts, cabbage, provides strong anti-estrogen effects on cancer cells, and it inhibits adhesion of cancer cells and their motility, and it prevents their invasiveness to other cells. Resveratrol, which you discussed before, is the non-flavonoid phenolic compound found in grapes, wine, as you mentioned. And I'm not suggesting that's the best way to get it. You can get it from grape juice.
But it's not. But it's not bad.
It's not bad. I'm not saying that. But that actually inhibits 6 out of 7 pro-cancer events. It inhibits insulin resistance. It inhibits abnormal estrogen activity, which includes making cancer cells grow. It has anti-HIV activity, and it inhibits viral replication as well as cancer cell replication. Turmeric extract acts as a potent antioxidant. It's a strong anti-inflammatory. Again, it inhibits insulin resistance, and cancer cells eat sugar. So the more sugar your insulin is able to take out of your bloodstream, the less the cancer cells have to eat. And you could go. I could go down the list from green tea extract to quercetin. There are so many mechanisms of action, and if you combine all of these mechanisms of action and you put them in a liposome, which is not new, but it's in the fat cell, it actually bypasses the digestive tract and is able to go right into the lymphatic system and work against these cancers.
What I have found fascinating, Michael and Ty, is that this planet has remedies for just about every problem. This counteracting on this planet is absolutely amazing.
Let me give you a really good example that's relevant today, if you would.
Okay.
We've had these outbreaks of food poisoning. They occurred in Europe. They've occurred in the United States. And all of these people are dying from it. And no one is talking about the most effective and fastest-acting cure for food poisoning that there is. And that is simply raw honey and ginger.
Like ginger mixed in with it?
Yep. Just mix a couple of tablespoons of ginger and a cup of honey, and it kills E. coli and it kills listeria, and it does it within a few hours.
Gosh, I never knew about that.
No. And that's what is so frustrating to a physician like me. When you hear about these outbreaks, whether it be listeria or E. coli, the most common food poisoning, no one says, but if you do this and take this, which everyone has access to now, it will take care of it.
It's amazing. They got 20-some cases of E. coli in St. Louis right now, where I just left.
And I'll guarantee you none of the doctors are using this method, because if they were, there wouldn't be 22 cases.
And does it build up? Do you build up a resistance, or do you have to keep taking it?
Oh, man, that's a really good question. Have you spent a lot of time in Mexico?
No, I have not.
Well, if you go to Mexico,